What if I told you that the you think you are, the voice in your head, the one who makes decisions, remembers birthdays, holds grudges, dreams big and feels small, is actually not real? Or at least, not as real as you've been led to believe. Let's take a journey into the heart of one of humanity's most haunting and fascinating questions. Is the self an illusion, or is it a fundamental truth of our existence? Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing that everything you identify with, your name, your memories, your personality, is just a mental construct, like characters in a story your brain keeps writing to give life a sense of continuity. It might sound like science fiction, but this idea is at the core of many ancient philosophies and even modern neuroscience. In Buddhism, for instance, the concept of anatta, or non-self, argues that there is no permanent, unchanging essence inside us. The self, according to this view, is a bundle of 5 aggregates: body, sensations, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness, that arise and pass away like clouds in the sky. No core I remains when you strip those away. This might sound abstract, but think about how different you were at age 10 versus now. Same name, maybe same memories, but your values, desires, and habits? Entirely different. If the self is constant, why does it change? Now let's shift from ancient philosophy to modern science. Neuroscientist Dr. David Eagleman explains that the brain is a team of competing networks that vote on what you perceive, feel, and decide. There is no central command center, no you sitting in the cockpit. Instead, it's like a parliament of neural activity, often noisy and contradictory. In fact, in experiments using fMRI, researchers have found that your brain can initiate actions up to 7 seconds before you're consciously aware of making a decision. That means by the time you think, I chose this, your brain already chose it for you. So are you making decisions? Or is your brain just letting you think you are, like giving a toddler a toy steering wheel in the back seat? Even the philosopher Daniel Dennett argues that the self is a center of narrative gravity, a fictional character we invent to make sense of our actions and experiences over time. It's useful, just like a country's border is useful, even though it doesn't physically exist on the ground. And what about real-life examples? Ever been so angry that you said, I wasn't myself? Or so in love you did things that felt totally unlike you? Or maybe you've had a moment in meditation or nature where the boundaries between you and the world felt like they dissolved completely. Those moments aren't malfunctions. They're glimpses of how fluid, even fictional, the self can be. In clinical psychology, we also see the fragility of selfhood. Patients with dissociative identity disorder, DID, experience multiple distinct selves, each with their own memories, voices, and preferences. Brain scans show real differences between these states. Are all of them real, or none of them? Even in day-to-day life, people perform different versions of themselves depending on context. You're a child in front of your parents, a boss in front of your employees, a flirt on a date, a friend over text. If the self was solid, why is it so easily reshaped? From a developmental standpoint, children don't fully develop a coherent self-concept until age 6 or 7. And even then, it's shaped largely by their environment, their attachment figures, and cultural context. In fact, in collectivist societies like Japan or India, the self is often experienced as relational rather than independent. I am a son, a student, a citizen, rather than I am me. Contrast that with individualist cultures like the US, where the self is treated almost like a personal brand, carefully curated and fiercely defended. Is one version more real than the other? Or are both just cultural illusions? Let's bring in some mind-bending data from the realm of neurosurgery. In patients who've had their corpus callosum severed, the bridge between the left and right brain hemispheres, something strange happens. When stimuli are shown only to the right hemisphere, which doesn't control language, the left hemisphere, which controls speech, will fabricate a story to explain the behavior. The verbal self literally invents a reason after the fact, believing it's in control. This means that even within your own head, parts of you don't always agree, and your conscious mind is constantly retrofitting a narrative to explain what your unconscious brain already did. Now consider how this ties into spiritual experiences. In deep meditation, advanced practitioners often report a disappearance of the ego, emerging with something larger, timeless, and impersonal. Sam Harris, a neuroscientist and meditation teacher, often speaks about how mindfulness helps you see thoughts and feelings arising on their own, not from a core self. And brain scans show that during such states, the default mode network, the area associated with self-referential thinking, goes quiet. It's as if the me switch gets turned off. Even psychedelic research, such as with psilocybin, reveals that when people feel a loss of self, known as ego dissolution, they often report lasting increases in well-being, openness, and connection. Why would losing yourself make you feel more whole, not less? Because maybe the illusion of self is what isolates us, stresses us, makes us cling to things. And maybe what we call enlightenment is the simple realization that we are not separate and never were. But wait, does this mean the self is totally fake? Not necessarily. Illusions can still be functional, just like a mirage tells you something about the heat of the road. The self is a kind of mental shortcut that helps us survive, plan, and relate. You can still use I and me without being tricked into thinking there's a solid entity behind it. Kind of like using a username online. You know it's not the real you, but it helps you navigate the system. The real question is not whether the self exists, but how it exists. Is it like a wave, real, but only as long as certain conditions hold? Is it like a movie character, compelling but ultimately scripted? Or is it like a flame, ever-changing, but still continuous? And how would your life change if you stopped defending yourself so much and started observing it with curiosity? If you realized that your anger, your jealousy, your pride, they aren't you. They're just passing clouds in the sky of awareness. Imagine how relationships might change, or how failure would sting less, or how success wouldn't inflate you. One final anecdote. There's a famous Zen story of a monk who came to his master and said, "I want to find myself." The master replied, "Who is asking?" And the monk was enlightened. It's not that the self doesn't exist, it's that it doesn't exist in the way we think it does. It's not a solid statue, but a flowing river. And when you stop grasping at it, you might just find something even deeper. Not the illusion of self, but the reality of being. So is the self an illusion or a reality? The answer may be, it's a useful illusion, arising within a deeper reality that's always been there, quietly watching, never separate. And maybe, just maybe, waking up to that truth is what we've been calling wisdom all along.